designed to prove something that they had to prove in order to throw off the hunt, throw off the scent, because even in the 90s, as increases in autism were becoming evidenced, many parents were beginning to be much more reluctant to allow their children to be vaccinated, of course, with the work of, you've interviewed him, Dr. Andrew Wakefield. And this had to be shut down. And so there had to be preordained reports that they could point to. And in fact, Thorson, remember him? He was one of the guys.
Yeah, Thorson, a CDC investigator, indicted by a federal grand jury in Atlanta for accusations of money laundering of CDC grant money, correct?
Yeah. Now imagine if that were someone on our side of the scientific realm, like the Geyers, this father-son team, PhD medical doctors that had found this out. Had they, money laundered and left the country, do you think that would have been front page news in every paper around the world?
Oh, yeah, of course.
And they completely ignored Thorson.
Yeah, exactly. They just decide that that's not news, is not important. They don't want people to cover it, just like they didn't have any reporters at the raw milk event. They're not covering the CDC data alteration story, but boy, they sure go after Wakefield. Even when he did not alter his data, they still accuse him of doing so.
And that brings to light, again, Mike, the reason why what you're doing is so important, what Alex Jones is doing is so important, and why people need to support these efforts, because, again, no grants from government, no quarter from government, and certainly no pharmaceutical money. No oil money is supporting this. There are no special, it's literally people. It's like the Ron Paul campaign to wake people up. It's a lot of people that are waking up and saying, I've had enough of it. I'm not waiting. I'm not asking for permission. It's time to take it over, and we're doing it with an end around through creating the new media, which is like the old media when it was a free press. It is a free press right here, right now, what you're hearing on this InfoWars money bomb.
Yeah, it's really crucial. In fact, I wanted to get your comments about the role of independent media today. So let's shift to that topic, as we've already covered the CDC in some detail there. But I know we're going to be covering that more on naturalnews.com later on if you're interested in covering it. And probably you'll see some of those articles on Infowars.com as well. I know Kurt Nimmo is always interested in some of the more investigative reports that we're turning up, and we share them here. Robert, let's get to the big issue of why the independent new media is crucial for the protection of freedom in our nation. You are a significant operator in the new media. You're part of the GCN, the Genesis Communications Network, with Ted Anderson. You work with Natural News on a radio show. You've been in the industry a long time. You watch and listen to Alex Jones. You see what I'm doing and others out there. In your opinion, Robert, why is it crucial that we continue, InfoWars in particular, because that's the focus here today, have the financial support to continue? Why does that matter to our collective future, Robert?
Well, the First Amendment and free press was really what kept, government in check. And government, of course, was the great threat to liberty. It always was from the very foundation. It was a risky proposition to, basically have a federal government. And our founders knew it. The framers knew it even. And the free press was able to call things out that, the crony, if you will, capitalism as we call it now, which is what the press is today, part of that crony capitalistic structure, is such that these, let's say, illicit, illegal activities and sometimes life-terminating activities of government are covered up or applauded even by that old media, the media conglomerates that, can trace back up to the few families that are controlling a lot of these things and on beyond that. And so supporting this is, I'll give you one example, not to toot your own horn, Mike, but it's something that's very recent and fresh in my mind, is your coverage of this product recently. And, if you can mention if you want, but basically that the FDA supposedly, if we go back to the dawn of the FDA, we have Harvey Wiley, who was really sincere about his efforts, the Pure Food and Drug Act, to keep adulterated toxic poisons out of the food supply, which may have been a legitimate role. But, of course, it was corrupted and bought out by the pharmaceutical interests as well, the German chemical companies as well. And that took everything out of the equation. Now the FDA became the opposite of what it may have been initially.
Well, that's the thing. We look to the FDA to, or at least the mainstream people look to the FDA to protect them. That's what they think the FDA is doing. But in reality, the FDA is in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. It's in bed with the vaccines. Now, there's a certain segment of the FDA, the Office of Criminal Investigations, let's say, that is nailing, let's say, doctors who are injecting people with fraudulent vaccines. That's going on. They catch those people. Or people who are importing counterfeit drugs or things like that. There's some really wacky stuff that goes on out there, and the OCI actually serves some useful role in going after the real hardcore criminal crooks. But by and large, the FDA is just out there pounding vitamins and pounding supplements and trying to make them illegal, and then pushing drugs and keeping them on the market even though those drugs are killing people. So, the FDA, it's sort of, it has abandoned its core principles and left us with, we got to walk through the minefield now ourselves and figure it out, because they're not really helping us.
Yeah, long ago they abandoned it. Now the American people are finally waking up to that reality. And you mentioned about counterfeit drugs. I thought one of the funniest things I remember hearing in recent years was that they were warning Americans against drugs imported from Canada, right? That they were really
yeah.
And I was like, what about the drugs here in America that you approve that are killing hundreds of thousands of Americans every year? What is not dangerous about that? And so, that's where they've lost their mind. They don't understand real issues of safety when we know what is really harming. And, of course, the supplements themselves are, by and large, not killing anybody. But on the occasion, on the chance that somebody does something that adulterates a supplement, the free press calls it out. That happened recently with Natural News. And, my goodness, within 24 hours, 36 hours, what happened with the free press is that it would have taken a year or two and millions of dollars of taxpayer funds to do what was done by a free press, calling danger where danger really existed.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, it's crucial that the free press, the new media here, exists to be able to ask these questions. And again, some of the things that InfoWars is focused on is asking those questions like, hey, how come Ron Paul isn't being given the airtime that he deserves as really the only intelligent presidential candidate who can lay out a plan for a balanced budget? Now, you've interviewed Ron Paul before. What are your thoughts to shift a bit to politics? We've only got a few minutes left here with you, Robert, but on the political side, what's your take on now Herman Cain being pushed out there as a solution, even though he's a Federal Reserve insider?
Yeah, Cain is funny. He's the only guy in 1 minute that can reverse his position every 10 seconds, not realize it. I don't know how he does that. I don't know if it's a talent or a fault. I can't make it. But yes, he should be disqualified just on the basis that he was a former Federal Reserve chairman. That alone should do it. But yeah, I've had the great fortune of interviewing Ron Paul over the years as well. And I tell you, he's always been in the corner of freedom. Of course, me as a homeopath, someone who supported me in my efforts and endeavors to get natural medicine out to the people. And he's an MD. Didn't bother him in the least. And he, the man of integrity like no other that I'd ever met in politics for sure. And certainly they don't want him to be president. But as we've seen, a few moms can roll back the federal bureaucracy by standing up for liberty, by not cowering in fear, by being willing to be arrested through their civil disobedience. And more of that needs to be done in consciousness. These women were not unconscious at all. Whereas some of the Occupy Wall Street people are not fully conscious, although they have a discontent that may be legitimate. What we've got to do is really stop believing anything that is said in the old media and support these new media outlets like InfoWars as well in this way. And then a Ron Paul for president becomes a reality, not something that's just a fantasy.
Yeah, well said, Robert. You are right on the money on that issue, and I really appreciate you joining us here. Thanks for taking the time to offer us your ideas here on the InfoWars Money Bomb, Robert. Good to check in with you.
Thanks, Mike Adams, and say thanks to Alex Jones for all his good work from me. I really appreciate everything that's being done.
I certainly will if we can find him. He got out of his chair here and just vanished. I'm not sure where he is, but obviously he's taking a break because he's got a lot ahead. A lot of hard work, and thank you, Robert, for your segment there. Great information from Robert Scott Bell. Now, before we get to the top of this hour, can you give us an overhead shot here, guys? A couple of videos that are in the warehouse back there. I actually went through the warehouse to find what videos that I would personally recommend if a friend came to me and they said, hey, what should I be watching? Here are a couple of them. A little reflection on that one. The World According to Monsanto here. And then also Scientists Under Attack. And this one has Jeffrey Smith in it. This is a very important film. And The World According to Monsanto is by Marie Monique Robin. This is, here it says right here, From Agent Orange to Genetically Modified Crops. These two films will absolutely blow your mind and open your mind on these issues. And if you're looking for something to give to someone as the holiday season is coming up, you may want to consider getting a few of these from the InfoWars store. And the guys are in the back there ready to ship these out to you. They've got inventory on both of these films as well as many others out there, many of Alex Jones's documentaries, and they are ready to ship those out. That's another way that you can help support the InfoWars Money Bomb. It's not just about making a donation, although that's a good idea as well, but you can also support the store here. And by the way, just so you know, I don't have any financial ties whatsoever to these movies or even this organization. I'm always here on a volunteer basis. That's because I believe in the mission of what Alex is doing here and what the InfoWars team is doing. I believe in freedom of the press. I believe in liberty. I believe in the Bill of Rights. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in Ron Paul. All right? I believe in everything, the core principles of what InfoWars stands for, and that's exactly why I'm here. In fact, that's the only reason why I'm here, because principle is what we've got to stand up for today in this info war that is taking place. All right, now coming up, going to go to a video. Let's see, Homeland Security taking over Walmart. That's a little video segment coming up here in just a few seconds. I'm not sure if I'm coming back. All right, Alex will be back in 5 minutes. So if Alex is back, then I'm saying goodbye, and thanks for having me on. If Alex doesn't make it back, I might be on for just a couple of minutes to turn it back over to Alex. But in either case, it has been my honor and my pleasure to host the last hour and a half for you here on the InfoWars Money Bomb. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for staying tuned. Watch this segment.
Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
They have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?
Today, it seems like nobody does care. And right now in Washington, D.C., we have seen a fall of the Republic.
Get your copy of Fall of the Republic on DVD at Infowars.com or watch it online right now in super high quality at prisonplanet.tv.
Hi, I'm Janet Napolitano, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security begins with hometown security.
Well, it's here. 1984 in America. This is the straw that breaks the camel's back. There is no doubt that we're in deep trouble as a society. The head of Homeland Security, Big Sis, Janet Napolitano, has now come out and announced that over 800 Walmarts in the next month are going to install telescreens at the checkout scanner with different federal orders to spy on the other people shopping.